Well, I'm not going to.
Can't start with that. Yes.
I'm not going to start our episode with the F-bomb.
Let me think here.
Maybe you know what? In honor of Tom Brady, let's go. Episode 71. Weighing in with Travis Hartman. I'm B Money, the producer. That over there is Weekend Trav. Looking good. Popping color again. I like it. That is traditional Weekend Trav attire. Tell me a little bit about that shirt.
Popping collars. There's not really much about it except that it's bright. I like it. And it's cold in Florida right now. So I'm trying to bring the warmth. In the boxing gym here, too, I've been putting on, like, tropical things on the TV to just mentally incite warmness because it's literally, it dropped to 30 degrees here.
We are suffering like the rest of the country with winter all consolidated into the past 2 days. I believe it has been in the 30s and 40s and then breaking through into the 50s the past couple of days. Weekend Trav, my son and I went to a theme park Saturday morning when it was the coldest of our weekend. It was cold.
Yeah.
It was cold. My fingers hurt, but I digress. We don't care about that. No one cares about that.
Because Thursday it's going to be in the high of 80s.
Yeah. So any of our viewers and listeners on the audio side of things, no one cares about us and our doldrums of Florida winter.
They don't.
But what they do care about is
not.
boxing. They do care about is beards. Maybe.
Yes.
And they do care about bourbon. And they do care just in general. We have a caring group of folks that watch and support.
If you have been watching us for the month of January, Weekend Trav has not been partaking. Nobody's probably said anything because they don't watch us enough. But I haven't been. But guess what? Today, I am.
We partake, so cheers to you, my friend.
Cheers, brother. Back to our bourbon.
You made it at 3 weeks.
Yeah, 22 days. I mean, it was decent. I was trying to do dry January. Didn't work.
I don't understand the whole concept of dry January, but, maybe we can get to that later on after we've drank a good amount of this bottle.
To be honest, I did not even know that there was such a thing as dry January. I decided to do it on my own token. After a couple of days in, people were like, oh, you're doing dry January. I was like, what is that?
Because you go from dry January into effed up February. And so we could really get into it. So Weekend Trav, we're here to all our subscribers. Thank you so much. If you have yet to subscribe, please do so below on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, Amazon. We're all over the place on the audio side. I think we might even are starting to open up a Rumble account. I don't know.
Yes, we are.
So, there's all sorts of stuff going on over here, and we appreciate all the support, the comments, the likes, all that good stuff. So Weekend Trav, we got a lot of boxing news to cover because we haven't had an episode in the past 2 weeks, and there's a lot that's transpired since then. We want to talk about a couple of fights coming up. Number one, this weekend, we have Keith Thurman taking on Mario Barrios, and then in April, which was just announced this week, Amanda Serrano taking on Katie Taylor. There's some Tyson Fury news, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, that's where we're at. But before I throw it over to you, I want to make sure everyone remembers that this is the number one Beards, Bourbon, and Boxing podcast shot specifically in Orlando, Florida, specifically in Laureate Park, specifically in a boxing gym, shot on a Sunday or Monday. Today is Sunday.
Boom.
Number one in the world.
Number one in the world, kids.
Fantastic niche demographic.
Number one in the world, though. That's all that matters.
In the world. When you drill down to those metrics, number one in the world.
Drill deep.
So
real deep. Sorry.
So Weekend Trav, we want to talk first and foremost. This weekend on February 5th, we have Keith Thurman taking on Mario Barrios. You alluded to that last time we chatted and sat down together. So let's talk about that fight. Give me your rundown. Give me your thoughts overall on what that really means, specifically for Keith Thurman.
There's a lot on the line for Keith Thurman because he's coming off a split decision loss to Manny Pacquiao, but he's been dormant for a while. And when you're in the boxing world, literally you become irrelevant when you take so much time off. And that's just the matter. It is what it is. There's so many great boxers out there right now that we don't talk about because they have nothing coming up. They've done nothing lately. Unfortunately, it's the sales world. It's what have you done for me lately? And that's what the consumer wants. Literally, boxing consumers, when we watch boxing, we want to hear about the best in the world on a consistent basis. Right. That's why guys like Canelo Alvarez are great because he's fighting 3, maybe even 4 times in a year, which is unheard of for a guy at his level. But because of that dude is superstardom now. He really is. The guy's a superstar now. And he hasn't always been, but he is now for sure because he fights a lot. So with that being said, Keith Thurman has a lot on the line because he hasn't fought for a while. And I was looking at Mario Barrios. I know why they picked him now. So Keith Thurman has to win this fight. He loses this fight, it's the end of the road because of their choice of opponent. Mario Barrios, when he turned pro, he fought at 122 pounds, okay? Most of his career, the highest he's ever fought is 140, okay? The fight with Keith Thurman is at 147. It's a welterweight. So I think Keith Thurman's people specifically picked a smaller guy because I think, honestly, Keith Thurman, friend of mine for sure, but I think he's got some questions to answer with his chin, with a lot of stuff because he's went down. He's been injured, or not injured, but he's been hurt by the Riverside Rocky, I forget, Josecito Lopez, hurt him pretty bad. Manny Pacquiao put him on the canvas in the first or second round of their fight. So I think now that's coming out that I think they're a little, his chin is a little questionable. His heart is there for sure because he gets up and finishes fights. So his heart's there. But when you fight a smaller guy, you better dominate him. And you know who Mario Barrios' last fight was against? Gervonta Tank Davis, who's a lot smaller. Okay, Gervonta knocked him out. So there's a lot on the line for Thurman because if Thurman goes the distance in a boring fight but wins with Barrios, that's not enough. Like, Keith Thurman has to put a stamp on this fight, and I think he's going to knock him out. I think he has to knock him out to be in that conversation, to be in the welterweight division again, to be in that conversation of the Manny Pacquiaos, the world champions, the Errol Spences, the Ugases, the Terrence Crawfords. He has to knock this guy out, and that is a lot of pressure.
Any pressure on Mario Barrios going into this thing?
I think zero pressure, just for exact reasons why I mentioned there. He's 100% going up in weight. So if he loses, what's he going to say? He's going to be like, oh, well, I'll go back down to 140 where I'm comfortable at. I'll go back down to where I was moving up to 140 in the first place anyway to fight people because he came from 122. Like, that's 120. The weight classes are
percentage-wise
122, 126, 130, 135, 140. That's 5 weight classes just to 140. 6 weight classes to 147, which is welterweight, which is where he's fighting Keith Thurman at. So that's a lot of weight. Like,
I mean, listen, if I get into a kick of drinking beer, it takes a good 6 weeks to gain 20 pounds just drinking beer. That's a big jump up, man. So, I mean, I'm just keeping it real. So that's coming up here February 5th. That's this weekend. That's Fox pay-per-view coming to you from Las Vegas. We weren't sure in the arena. I don't know which arena that was coming
Michelob
from.
Ultra Arena, which I'm not really sure what that's
Who knows
at.
which one that is nowadays.
Sponsorships change all the time.
So what is your outlook here on the fight itself? How do you see this fight going?
You know, I think it's going to be a competitive fight because it's always going to be competitive when a guy like Mario Barrios, he doesn't have anything to lose. For all the reasons I mentioned, he doesn't have anything to lose. So that can make for a very interesting fight, meaning he's going to go out there, he's going to lay it all on the line because he doesn't care if he wins or loses necessarily. Because if he loses, his career is still going to be okay. I think that I mentioned maybe in the prelude to this, I was like, oh, they're both at a crossroads. I don't agree with that anymore. I think the only person that's at a crossroads here is Keith Thurman. Because if Barrios loses, he's fine. He's going to go back down to 140 where he's comfortable at. If Thurman loses, you just lost to a guy that fought at 122 5, 6, 7 years ago. That's a big loss.
And how old is Keith Thurman?
Keith Thurman's 31 or 32, so he's not. Listen, back in the day, you would say, yeah, he was older, but nowadays, he's not. He's only 31 or 32, so even if he does lose, you can't say he's completely done, but it's going to be a long road back.
From a quantity of fights, how old is he?
He's still fairly young because he's only really been in some really serious fights probably the last 2 to 3 years of his career, of his fighting career, because he hasn't fought for a year or so after the Manny Pacquiao fight. So I don't think he's not long in the tooth in that regard because he hasn't been in wars, because they used to call him Keith One-Time Thurman, meaning he was knocking people out early.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to prolong his career if he wants it to. But I don't know. But
either way, to be in the conversation of the other names. You know, that's why this fight is so critical.
Yes.
He has to put his name on this fight. He has to stamp his name on this and finish it.
Yeah, it just can't be a win.
A decisive finish.
Yep. They can't just be a win.
No judges, no nothing. You need to finish the fight.
Yep.
That way you can continue to keep your name in that conversation.
Yep.
You might not be in the top 3 or 4 in that conversation, but you need to be in the echelon of the other guys in that weight class.
At least be in the conversation.
Yeah,
Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's where if you win a decision, a WUD over Barrios, you're not in the conversation.
That's the one thing we've learned over the last 2 years is that as long as you keep your name in the conversation, That's all that matters right now.
Yep.
I mean, take for one, I mean, not that it's the same weight class because it's not, but you get a guy, I was writing some names down, you get a guy like Ryan Garcia, right? He's just kept his name in the conversation just by doing his prima donna thing online.
Yep.
He hasn't fought, right? I mean, he fought a year ago, but still, he's been talking a lot. But when you go back to this fight, keeping your name in the conversation is so critical nowadays on the marketing side of it.
Yep.
Because promoters, in my opinion, promoters aren't actually doing their main job, which is marketing your fighters.
Promoting your
Promoting
fighters.
your fighters.
That's literally in the name of your job.
It seems to me that nowadays promoters are in the business of just locking down the fights, locking down the cards, rather than promoting your fighters. So, that being said, we got Keith Thurman, Mario Barrios, February 5th, this weekend, Fox Pay-Per-View, Las Vegas.
That you mentioned Garcia.
Yeah.
I'm hearing rumblings that Kambosos his two options are Lomachenko and Garcia.
So that was reported on ESPN Ringside, and Kambosos responded to that almost instantaneously. He said, that's a lie.
Yeah.
It's either Haney or it's Lomachenko.
Yeah, I don't know because DAZN Boxing, who promotes some of those guys, they came out and said it actually. So that's where Garcia did it. I'm not taking this is not from Garcia. So I'm like, Kambosos can say that for sure. He still kind of calls the shots, but you know who calls the shots? His promoter.
Correct.
That's ultimately who. If his promoter says no.
Isn't that a sad state of affairs now? And maybe it's always been that way. I guess it's always been that way.
Yeah.
The fighters don't call their shots. They're still strung along by their promoters.
Unless you are Floyd Mayweather, who changed the game in that respect because he did start calling his own shots.
That's true.
He left Bob Arum at Top Rank.
That's true.
Promoted his own self for a while. Even though he was promoting himself, he was still kind of at the hands of other promoters. But he eventually strong-armed everybody and said, hey, you got to listen to me. But he's the 1 in a billion guy that can do
exactly.
that. Exactly. That's it. He's the exception, not the rule.
It's surprising no one else has really done that other than your golden boy. But that was towards the latter part of his career. So
yeah, true.
But what I will say on the Kambosos topic, I'll give him credit because he's all over social media in a good way. He responds.
Yeah.
He doesn't leave question marks. He responds. And whether or not that ends up being the result, who knows? But he responds. So when you get the fake news out there, when you get the fake media news out there that they're just trying to get their 10 seconds of fame because they're quote-unquote breaking news and it ends up being false, i.e. Adam Schefter, i.e. Tom Brady, who knows if he's retired. TB12. It's interesting when the fighters come back and say, no.
Yeah.
We didn't say that.
Yeah.
Because it's either Haney or Lomachenko. Ryan Garcia is not even in the conversation. And he shouldn't be.
And you're 100% correct because we have a running tally over here that we're going to update today on our weighing in with Travis Hartman Instagram page. We have a running tally over here. You probably can't see it on our wall here.
Though you can see it in the video.
But we have to update them. There's currently 379, but we have to add I think another 7.
Maybe
I believe.
More.
So
maybe 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, maybe more.
Yeah.
So regardless, it's over a year is that running tally. So we definitely have to update that.
But every day he's been running his mouth. We used to and this is what's interesting in our seats because we can do whatever we want because first of all, we don't answer to anybody. Secondly, who's listening? I hope you're listening. I hope you're watching.
One day.
Why not? But we can say whatever we want. We used to actually kind of love Ryan Garcia, especially after that fight when we were there in Texas,
January 1st, 2021,
and it was great. Luke Campbell was very they had respectful words to speak about Ryan Garcia after the fight when we were hanging out with them, and it's like. After that, what have you done?
Man, I'll give you the riding high.
I'll give you the mental break. I get that. Anxiety is a real thing. Men's health is a real thing. I'm an advocate of that. But then where I lost respect for him was in the middle of his mental break. He gets on Twitter and starts running his mouth.
Start lashing out,
against guys fighting each other when he's sitting on the sidelines because he has anxiety.
Yeah, it didn't look good. It wasn't a good look.
Because it didn't look true. And it's actually very disrespectful to those that actually suffer with that stuff.
That's the biggest problem, I think, because you're right.
And now he's male modeling himself with some sort of a face soap or something.
Yep.
I ain't using that guy's soap.
Listen, the dude's a good-looking guy. He is. But you gotta fight. Because you know why you're getting all those endorsements is because you're an undefeated boxer. You don't fight anymore, you're going to lose a lot of that. He doesn't realize it. I hope he does because he's going to lose a lot of those sponsorships.
He might be a good-looking dude, but it's not a good look. There's a difference.
That's
So
very good.
I don't want to
That's
spend a
very
lot
good.
of time on that clown. And yeah, I called him a clown. He is.
It's fair.
So
I was a clown at that age too.
So Keith Thurman, are you going to do a separate prediction video, or you just want to throw it out? You want to throw your nuts on the table right now? Who do you think is going to win? That's what it sounds like.
I
folks.
think that, no disrespect, but we'll just keep it on here. I don't need a separate video for him.
Fine.
I'm going to go with a Keith Thurman, and I'm going to try, and this is where my friendship with him is probably going to come in play, is I think he's going to stop this guy. I think he's going to stop him a little later than most think. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to knock him out in under 5 rounds. I'm going like 7. I'm going 7. Was that your thinking?
That was the number in my head.
7. So we're going 7 because it's lucky number 7. So
Okay.
I'm hoping for him because he needs that. If this goes 10, 11, 12 rounds and he just looks boring and honestly, Barrios can come in here and make this a stinker and like hold him. So Barrios is a veteran. Barrios knows how to survive if he needs to. So if Barrios comes in here not trying to win, he can make an ugly, boring fight,
Yeah.
which would look terrible for Keith Thurman.
Have you looked at the odds on that? I haven't looked at them yet.
I have not looked at him. It's got to be massively in favor of Keith Thurman. It's got to be. Maybe I'll do a prediction video on that.
We'll see.
Once we look the odds up, if it's something crazy, and it might be worth it.
We never advocate. I won't say never, but we don't advocate gambling necessarily. We give our thoughts.
We don't
And
advocate irresponsible gambling.
no
for sure.
irresponsibility. So the NFL even has commercials now, which is so funny nowadays. That's the way our worlds will work. And you have
I saw it.
former coach Steve Mariucci up
Yeah,
there,
I saw it too.
and he puts the 3 rules on: know your limits, and then I lose track.
I saw it.
Because, the gambling apps are addictive. They throw out that free play money.
Yeah,
they throw out
they
those
can be.
blackjack things. You start winning the blackjack, and then all of a sudden, boom, you lose.
Yeah,
And lose.
Don't gamble.
Anyways. So that's Keith Thurman, Mario Barrios. We got Keith Thurman, maybe round 7, round 8, somewhere around there. Sounds pretty good.
And I'm saying that prediction for multiple reasons. One is because I think that's going to happen, but also that needs to happen for his career.
It needs to happen.
For his career,
Yeah.
that needs to happen, bro.
So that is February 5th, Las Vegas, Fox pay-per-view, and that's this weekend. Next, let's shift gears. Let's shift gears to the ladies. We are big advocates of women's boxing. Look through our catalog of episodes, which you can if you're on YouTube, if you're anywhere, and go back to the early days. And we've talked about women's boxing on and off, depending on what's been out there for us. Usually it's centered around Michaela Mayer because that's kind of one of the main names, or Clarissa Shields. But here we have Amanda Serrano. We've talked about her plenty of times, and Katie Taylor we've talked about. Finally, superstar women's boxing match. We haven't seen one of these in a long time. When was the last time you could think of 2 marquee women's boxers fighting each other?
Honestly, so it's happened once, but it was Layla Ali and Christy Martin. But Christy Martin was later in her career, and she also went up in weight. So that's what I was going to say. That's the last big one that I can remember. This one's different because
Katie Taylor's at pretty much the height
Yep.
right now of her career, and
Yep.
Amanda Serrano's coming up, but very explosive, very dangerous. This is a good fight, folks, and we've been talking.
Great fight.
We've talked about women's boxing here on the show many a times. This is Madison Square Garden, headlining Madison Square Garden. How many of you out there listening can say you've done that? No one. Well, hopefully, there is somebody out there that can say that.
I've never headlined it, but I fought at Madison.
there. Okay, so
But Amanda Serrano her nickname is the Real Deal. This is the real
This is the
deal.
real deal.
Like, she's headlining a Madison Square Garden, which I can only dream of at this point.
Yeah, so that's
Dream of.
April 30th on DAZN. And listen,
It's for all the marbles.
all the marbles, and there's already the marketing element going into it, and we can thank Jake Paul and others for that.
100%.
But we're really looking forward to this.
I really am too, because I like Katie Taylor. She's a blue chip type of fighter. She had a really close fight with a girl up on her career, and a lot of people thought she might have lost. She immediately rematches the girl, beats the girl. Katie Taylor is the real deal as well. This whole fight should be called the real deal.
She's a dog in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an appearance thing, not at all.
Yeah,
but she's a dog in the ring. Like, she is tough as nails. Tough as nails. If you have not yet done it, look up video. Just look up video of both of these women.
She's 20. Katie Taylor is 20-0. Amanda Serrano is 42-1. So this is a blockbuster fight. And honestly, I don't want to call the men out because we do have a lot of great men's fights, and we've had a lot of great men's fights. But men, look what's going on right now. These two are not trying to protect their record. They're trying to fight their butts off to capture the audience.
Right.
The women's audience. They're trying to solidify women's boxing is important. When's the last time a women's boxing match headlined at Madison Square Garden.
That's
a better one.
That's
I don't know where the Christy Martin Ali fight was at. It'd have been awesome if it was Madison Square Garden, but this is a huge fight.
Yeah.
This is a huge fight.
And so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it just because it's still down the road a bit, but it's interesting. There's already some drama swirling around it, not with the two ladies fighting, to the two women fighting. Sorry, I don't mean to sound misogynist, because there's somebody else in the boxing realm that is being accused of being a misogynist. Not only has he been accused this month, he's not having a good month, been accused of being maybe a racist, which we don't agree with, but
poor Bob Arum.
Maybe has some racist tendencies, who knows, but now also a misogynist, as Jake Paul has called out famed promoter Bob Arum, because Michaela Mayer comes out and says, you know what, she has a list. She wants to become undisputed in her weight class, but then move to the next weight class, or this weight class, and fight one of these ladies.
She needs to.
Jake Paul's response to that was, good luck, because number one, your promoter ain't going to have that, and he doesn't even do a good job promoting you. So why do you think that's going to even be number 5 on his list of things to do? It's not.
Like, I think easily we could probably say for the month of January, the person that has had the worst month in January has got to be Bob Arum. He's had the worst month of January. In the boxing world, he's had the worst month because Terrence Crawford is also suing him for 6 different counts. One of the counts is for racial bias, but that's not the main focus of the lawsuit.
Right.
I was guilty of clickbait that as well.
Yep.
That is not even the main focus of it. There's 5 other counts. Racial bias was just mentioned as one count, so that's not even the major part of it. But now Jake Paul, who's got a massive following, is tacking onto that you're a misogynist. So Bob Arum's not having a good month. And you know what? Now that we've brought up Jake Paul, I got to jump in because this kid is using his platform.
Well, before you do, let's finish up the topic about Bob Arum potentially being misogynistic. And he had a response to that, and it really has to do with follow the money. It's just the money's not there. Here's my response to that. You might be right, Bob Arum and everyone else that says that. There's a reason also why the money's not there. If you haven't promoted those things over the last couple of decades,
Yep.
Of course the money's not there.
Yep.
I'll give the UFC credit where the credit's due. They jumped in on women's fighting where it made sense to. Mm-hmm. They obviously jumped on coattails of different fighters, but they've promoted the hell out of it, and now there's several weight classes and several women involved. They're not all good matches, but they're getting a lot better because they've poured the money in.
Yep.
They've headlined pay-per-views already.
Yeah.
Okay?
I mean, Ronda Rousey was a blockbuster.
Let's take fake fighting.
Years ago.
Fake fighting. Pro wrestling has done this.
Yep.
So why is boxing so late to the game in doing this? Don't tell me it's because it's a lack of talent. Sure, that's out there. But if you're not promoting it on your side as the main marketer, the talent pool is not going to build up as quickly as it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that squarely falls not on the people buying pay-per-views, but the people selling the pay-per-views, marketing them. So it's Bob Arum and all those kind of lackeys. It's your fault why women's boxing is so behind the times compared to UFC, compared to pro wrestling, compared to all this stuff. It is their fault.
You're partially right. I think that here's the fact that is the money there right now? No, but the money's not there until it's there. That makes sense.
It's called lead loss.
Put it out there.
It's called lead loss. You might not make a ton of money on these things initially, but you got to pour the money in early because at some point it could explode. You need the talent pool, but if they're not giving a reason for the talent pool to increase, why bother? Michaela Mayer has even come out and said, "I'm not going to fight I'm going to do 3-minute rounds. Why would I bother? I'm not getting paid to do 3-minute rounds." The talent pool's not there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about a lot of that stuff because obviously Michaela Mayer is very talented as well. I've watched her fights, and Michaela Mayer's boxing matches, she leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes, you're right.
For sure.
You're right.
So there's that. However, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve to be promoted, though. She does, for sure. Let's put her in a blockbuster fight, and then we'll go from there. Mm-hmm. But until you 100% nail it down and start putting women in the forefront for multiple different fights, which is what Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano are doing right now, and props to Matchroom Boxing, which is Eddie Hearn. Props to Jake Paul. Amanda Serrano was the first one that comes out and says, she's like, before Jake Paul, I was making $40,000 a fight. She's both fights under Jake Paul, she made $500,000 each.
That's great.
Okay, so anybody listen, you don't have to like Jake Paul, period. I am asking people for certain issues is Jake Paul wrong here by 100% giving Amanda Serrano a platform? And I guarantee you can't answer that he's wrong there because he's not. He's right. Another topic that I can shift a little bit from the women's because Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, amazing. It's for the WBC, the WBA, the WBF, and the IB or the WBO world title. 4 titles, which all the major titles.
Yep.
Huge. Jake Paul deserves some credit for that because he signed Amanda Serrano to his promotion company, right? Jake Paul's also now advocating for UFC fighters. He's a boxer, but he's actually, look what he's doing. He's actually advocating for Dana White to pay the fighters more money.
Listen.
How is that wrong?
Listen.
That's what I don't get.
They've called this stuff prize fighting since the beginning of time for a reason.
100%.
You need to pay the guys and gals for putting their bodies, their livelihood, their future on the line. UFC, obviously, they do not. They've had a lot of issues going on. They're heavyweight champ. There's issues with that. He has knee surgery right now, so it's going to be buried for a little while. The pay rate is not where it should be. You have fighters, Mike Perry, friends of ours. You see him.
Friends of the show. What's up, Mike?
He came out recently and said, for the most part, I'm summing it up, that, they're not paying. Bare Knuckle is paying, and here it is. Why wouldn't I not train? Why wouldn't I go training boxing more rather than, the MMA side of the UFC? Now, I'm that's kind of paraphrasing a lot, so I don't want to say that that's a quote. It's not.
Yeah, it wasn't a direct quote.
But for the most part, he ain't wrong. He's not wrong. Follow the money. You're putting your head on the line. You're putting your body on the line, and you're going to let a guy like Bob Arum and others become super, super wealthy off of you? That's not how it works.
Listen, there's a reason why I had a major beef with Dana White a long time ago because I'm a boxer, I'm a fighter, I stand up for fighters because I know for a fact that we put our lives on the line every single time we step in the ring. So we want to get paid as much as we can because we don't know that we're going to get paid anymore because we could get injured any day. In boxing, unlike any other professional sports, like not any other, but most of the major ones like basketball and football, there's what you call guaranteed contracts. Right. What people don't realize about boxing is there's no guaranteed contract. Right. If we don't compete, we don't get paid. Right. Plain and simple. So when a guy wants more money to make a fight happen, I'm okay with it because I know what he's doing. He's like, you know what? I'm prolonging my life. I'm prolonging my money-making life because I can't fight forever. So I understand that. So Google this because people can fact check me, but my original beef with Dana White was like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, but him and Tito Ortiz. Google this. Tito Ortiz got a back injury, and he submitted it to the UFC because they do pay for a lot of that stuff. Like I'm sure they're paying for the heavyweight champion of the world.
Fighters under contract.
I'm sure they're paying for his knee surgery or whatever's going on, the heavyweight champion of the world for UFC.
If you're under contract, they will.
So Tito Ortiz was under contract. He submitted it to Dana White for a back surgery, and Dana White declined it and said that was not from the UFC. You did not get that injury from boxing or from UFC or from MMA. But my whole thought process was Tito Ortiz was the face of UFC when it was coming up, right?
Yep.
He was 100%.
One of them,
he was on the cover of I think the UFC game, right? Well, Dana White declined that. I think it was like a $7,500 surgery, right? And he declined it. So immediately the fighter in me came out and I go, I don't like Dana White anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't like him. Mm-hmm. Him and Tito have had beef for a while. If you can look at it, they've had beef. Even when he was signed with them, they've had beef. It's fair. Whatever their beef was, I don't know for sure. Only those two know it. But what I do know is that happened. And I looked at Dana White. In my mind, I'm thinking, your stock alone right now in the UFC is worth I think it's something like $500 million what his stock is worth. Plus he makes money yearly because he's a majority owner and he's the president and face of it, right? So I'm like, even if Tito Ortiz didn't get that injury from the UFC, it's $7,500. That's a drop in the can to you. Mm-hmm. That is literally like me going out and buying a Coke. It is, literally. Yeah. Pay it. That's been my whole thing with Dana White from a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but it was a decision made because it wanted to shut the door on the future, on what we're seeing now, which is really restricting pay, restricting benefit. There's no real benefits. I mean, yes, if you're under contract, you get some of the healthcare shit taken care of. Oops. But other than that, there's nothing. Same thing with boxing, though. It's like the promoters are smart. Having all these belts and all these different companies and all this stuff, they're smart because they kept it splintered for a reason because there's no unification. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a union guy. I never have been. But when it comes to the sports world, it's a little different. It's a little different because these athletes, men and women, putting your bodies on the line, and you actually don't have anyone to come to your aid if something happens. You're on your own. Mm-hmm. You're on an island, unless you're surrounded by proper agencies, things like that, and they could really fight for you. But if you don't have that, if you're a random mid-card person, you're screwed. You're screwed.
So this is my challenge to Jake Paul, though, because I appreciate him challenging the UFC to start paying the fighters more, taking care of them. But UFC has done something that boxing hasn't done, because UFC does take care of their fighters in regard to medical. If you're signed with them, you have a little bit of healthcare coverage, right?
Yeah.
Boxers don't.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
I'll take that back. The night of the fights, we are covered under a certain insurance policy. Mm-hmm. That night, right? But leading up to those fights that we're training our butts off for, if we get injured leading up to those fights, we're not covered at all. That's on our own, dime.
It sucks. Listen, as a self-employed individual, having healthcare sucks. Our country, I love our country, and I love all the things we do, but I agree, in a political discussion, I agree with both sides of the aisle here. Our healthcare system sucks. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what the proper fix is. I don't think it's a unified sort of system and socialized. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But all I know is the current system sucks because, for the most part, the healthcare industry, pharmaceuticals run everything. You know, doing what I do for a living, I know that. I mean, just follow the stocks, bro. So, as a self-employed individual, it sucks getting healthcare, and it sucks getting sick. Because I'm just waiting, like that bill's going to come in. I'm like,
there.
How much did that cost?
Yep.
I mean, come on. I'd rather just wait it out. When I got the big C, which people don't like when I call it the big C because they think cancer's a big C. Yeah, I guess that's a bigger C.
It is a lot bigger.
It's a lot bigger, but
call it the Rona. Serrano.
Dave from Barstool, he called it big C. So I call it the Rona. When I got the Rona, and I had actually go to walk-in clinics, and I got the bills in the mail, I'm like, dang it.
It was a lot.
And what did they tell me to do? Nothing special other than go home.
Go home, isolate.
Get better, treat it like it's the flu, basically. I had some medicines prescribed to me because my breathing was pretty rough. And that was expensive as hell, too. Gee, what a shock, right? So, digression. Ultimately, Jake Paul, if he can put his money where his mouth is, and they do something leading up to fights, having some sort of a window, you're covered from 30, 45 days out to 30 to 45 days beyond. I don't know what the answer is there. I would applaud him and his promotion company for doing that, MVP.
For boxing, that's my call to Jake Paul is. Literally, he's calling out Dana White for more pay for their fighters, right? Well, Jake, you're a boxer. You're a professional boxer. You're in my realm now, right?
Yep.
BJ, you're my boy. I love you too. Why don't you get Jake Paul to start advocating more for professional boxers and their health care, professional boxers and a little bit of health care leading up to fights, like you said, whether it's 30, 45 days. Do you know how many fights happen? Or do you know how many fights that don't happen because of an injury during training?
Sure.
We're out money for that.
Sure.
Let's start advocating insurance companies to start covering these individuals for stuff like that. Let's start advocating promoters to start covering these guys, because I know both sides now. When I'm a promoter, I have to spend thousands of dollars for insurance that I literally never use. But as a promoter, I got to pay it. And I'm actually okay with it because I was a fighter as well.
Yeah.
So I'm okay paying that insurance because I know that if any fighter ever gets injured on my card, he's covered by the insurance policy that I had to take out based on the state requirements that I promote in. So, Jake Paul, start advocating for boxers too, bro. I get it. You're trying to change the game. You're trying to change a lot of stuff. I love it because you've changed women's boxing with the Amanda Serrano-Katie Taylor fight. You're trying to change the UFC, which I'm cool with that because those guys do deserve to make a lot of money because those guys' careers, they're a lot less
at the
than
very
boxing.
least in that realm, he's at least shining a light on it significantly. And it's interesting when you shine light into a corner and you see how many cockroaches scurry around. And Dana White in this circumstance is the cockroach, the big one, with regard to it. I agree with Dana White on a lot of stuff. I agree with him on his COVID stance and medicine that way. But when it comes to the way he treats his athletes from a pay standpoint, healthcare, I do not. So it'll be interesting. And Jake Paul's not Jake Paul's side yet, but when it comes to his stances, irregardless of his reasonings for doing it, he might be doing it just for shameless self-promotion. He might not even believe in the cause, and that's fine because the point is that he's bringing it up. He's the one actually advocating it. Who cares what his motives are?
100%.
Who
100%.
cares? Who cares? So I know we digressed a lot from the ladies, from the women, I should say. Amanda Serrano, Katie
It helped
Taylor.
lead us into that.
But that is coming April 30th. We're going to talk more as we get into April, which is a couple months away. But they're fighting Madison Square Garden. Historic bout, headlining Madison Square Garden. Amazing. Kudos to those women, and we look forward to talking a little bit further down the road.
I just hope everybody appreciates that B Money is actually giving massive respect and accolades to women professional athletes. I think that deserves to be talked about because you are, and that's me. To me, that means that it deserves it and it's real. Okay. So I appreciate that, though. That's not a knock. That is like
I don't
real
think
life
knock,
appreciation.
For context purposes, the reason why Weekend Trav says that is because I tend to knock things like the WNBA because that's basically like going to the YMCA and watching a pickup basketball game amongst 10-year-olds. You gotta get it is. You're gonna get a lot of layups. You're gonna get a lot of jump shots. You're gonna get a lot of confusion. That is what the WNBA is. Okay. Confusion, layups, jump shots. That should be their new slogan. The WNBA: confusion, layups, jump shots.
I'm just drinking over here.
So make sure you snip that part and use that for our marketing purposes.
I'm giving you accolades because you are putting. This is where I hope everybody appreciates it more so than ever, though, and know that it's real. Is that you give credit when credit is due.
When you get two pugilists, two fighters in a ring, a cage, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. It only matters if you're transgender because that doesn't count. But if you're a man or a woman, it doesn't. Do we need to go into that topic? We need to talk about that swimmer from University of Pennsylvania. That's
that's not
freaking
good.
Travesty.
I think it's bad. You know what? I think is it's people should really start questioning it is when we have a transgender person like Bruce Jenner, who is now Caitlyn Jenner, is also against this woman competing, or this man competing against women. I'm sorry. If you're watching our show, I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. She's a man. She was born a man. She's competing against women, and she's dominating them. Even a transgender who is the face of transgenderism, whatever that is, which is Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, he's telling everybody, this is a travesty.
Olympian. He has every right to say.
One of the greatest athletes of all time, probably.
As a man. He has,
as a man.
But if he did it as a woman, which seems to be the trajectory we're headed to, he would crush every record. Anyways. Shadow ban us all you want. What are we going to lose?
Care.
5 views? I don't care. Listen, this guy, he's a guy. Just like the old State Farm commercial said, well, he's a guy. Jake from State Farm, well, he's a guy.
He sounds hideous.
He's a guy. This guy is crushing women's swimming records. University of Pennsylvania, you should be ashamed of yourselves because I wouldn't even know your college existed. It's not Penn State. That's the only college I know in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm sure there's others. Pitt's another one. Who the heck is the University of Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
They might be an Ivy League for all I know. I think they probably are. I probably should give them a little credit. But you're losing all your credibility with me. Number one, I'm not a massive advocate of women's sports. I understand that. I think certain sports are entertaining to watch. Obviously, boxing, fighting, gymnastics. Swimming, real women swimming, very competitive. I like it when it's like people going against each other, men going against men, women going against women, not damn transgenders going against women.
Listen, that's the thing. If you actually support women's equal rights, then you are not then you should not be supporting. My wife is a professional tennis player, right? I don't want her playing against a born male.
Weekend Trav. The feminists, it's crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets, because they don't know who to argue for. They are so entrenched in the left side of things that they're so confused. I don't know if I should stand up for the ladies whose records are being just torn apart by this dude. It's incredible to me that this is still going on. The NCAA, by the way, just basically kicked the can to basically said that, well, it's kind of up to every sports, so they're actually taking responsibility. They're not taking responsibility for anything.
Of course, nobody wants to stand up right now.
They're waiting for actual the swimming federation to make a call on everything to follow suit. It's amazing to me that we can't just say, this guy who literally during his college career swam on the men's team. It's not like he literally transitioned because he was mediocre on the men's team.
There's a perfect example as well in track. I think it was 2017. This person
That's
who was a
realm.
male,
Absolutely.
and I think he was ranked in like the 200, 300s, and then he transformed. I don't even know. Like, please forgive me that I don't know the exact vernaculars. Blah blah blah. But he transitioned.
No offense to the Transformers.
He transitioned to a female, and then guess what happened? He was number one in the nation.
Okay, so listen, it's pure
against females.
It's
though.
pure A&P and anatomy and physiology. There we go, A&P.
Trust the science.
Trust the science.
But only when it agrees with your political realm.
Listen, it's physiology. When you get to the cream of the crop athlete-wise, men are just going to be better athletes in the sport than the women are. That's not me being a misogynist.
It's
I'm not being
genetically
sexist. This is genetics.
Yeah, it is.
And so, once again, I'm an advocate of boxing, the fighting sports, softball.
But are you an advocate of Katie Taylor
Volleyball.
fighting Gervonta Davis?
No.
There you go. What's the difference?
That's Gervonta
Davis.
Davis.
So silly.
Put Gervonta Davis in there with Clarissa Shields, 2 different weights. He's going to tear her apart.
Probably.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is. It's just A&P, anatomy and physiology. It's not me being sexist. It's not being a right-wing lunatic. It's just me saying that's the pure science of it. It's not fair. We've gone through decades of Title IX and all this stuff and trying to get women's sports up to where it probably should be. It goes back to my original argument about Bob Arum and the others. You're not promoting and marketing properly. That's why there's such a divide between money and all sorts of stuff. You're getting the same thing here. This is setting women's sports behind. By letting dudes go into women's sports, I can't even think about those words coming out of my mouth. We're letting dudes into women's sports.
Let's talk about this, right? Okay. I'm a girl dad. So are you.
So am I.
Can you imagine if your little girl had to go up against a born male? How would you feel? I have two aspects of this because one, my wife is a tennis player where she makes a living doing that.
Yeah.
Now I have a little girl. I would not accept that. And here's the deal. A lot of people always like to point out the problem, right? Okay, we've pointed the problem out. That's a problem in our opinion. That's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to point out the solution. Here's a solution. If you want to be a transgender, that's your personal choice. You chose to do that. In my opinion, right?
It's weird, but it's your prerogative.
Now let's have a transgender league, okay?
Bingo,
if you have a transgender league, compete against each other. That's fair.
Yes.
Okay, whatever science there is, because here's the deal. I've had this discussion with people, and I always like to hear the other sides of stories.
Sure.
Probably too much. I actually talk to the other side of political spectrum and things like this as well. I was on a conference call because of a friend who's a teacher back in Missouri that I met. She's in California now. She's like, Travis, you got to hear this. It's a transgender, literally is like you could call in and listen in, right? And I listened in the whole time because I was trying to hear both sides of the story. And I asked the question, right? Never once was answered. I was like, how? Okay, you're telling me that a born male can compete against a female in professional tennis. That was my question, was that. I was like, and you're telling me that born male doesn't have an advantage over that tennis player who is a born female.
Right.
They literally skipped over me, but I still stayed on the conversation and listened, and I never got an answer. But I've been educating myself. When you're a transgender, you have this thing, it's called hormone blockers. They start blocking certain hormones,
Sure.
and you start getting no testosterone gets blocked, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
all of that stuff. I don't mean to blah, 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 like it's not a big deal. It is. But they're saying that they block the testosterone, right? But if you even ask Bruce Jenner, and he says it, he goes, I've had all my testosterone blocked, I've had all that blocked, blah, blah, blah. But yet, if you put me against a female, I would beat her.
Absolutely.
Because his whole life, he's been a male.
We can
You
trav.
don't just lose all that strength and all that just because your testosterone's blocked now.
We can trav. There's been a few MMA fights between transgender and traditional women. I hate saying that they're traditional. They're just women.
They're women, yep.
We have yet to hear of a result where a traditional woman beat a transgender. If that ever happened, that would be headline news. What we have heard
Well, she was seriously hurt, I remember.
are women being seriously maimed and hurt in these cages or whatever the ring was in those situations. That is not right. It is not right. I agree with you. You want all these weirdos to fight each other and to compete each other in a transgender league? Go for it.
Go against each other. What's
Go
wrong
for
with
it.
But that's my thing too. And I asked that question on the thing too. I was like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What's wrong with having a separate league? Like, well, that somebody else must have asked that question because they kind of addressed it. They're like, well, we don't want to single out people and we don't want to make them feel like they're different.
They already are.
You are different, and I'm sorry.
The dudes are running with wieners. Unless they chop them off and, plug them in, or I don't know how they do it.
That's also a thing going on with this swimmer is they're saying there's some girls that are in the locker rooms that are very, 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 because that person
You would think he's at a disadvantage because he has a rudder.
flying out, and they say that person doesn't cover that up, and they're actually very.
I'm saying that you would think that he's at a disadvantage because he's swimming with a rudder in the water. I think that slows you down, doesn't it?
I don't know.
It's not.
I'm not a swimming
It's
expert.
not. He doesn't cut through the water as well.
I'm not a swimming expert, so I couldn't tell you
Me
that
either.
one.
Me either. But ultimately, this discussion was brought about because of my disdain for the WNBA. How do you think they would feel if a bench warmer in the NBA became a woman somehow, transgendered himself, and then became the all-star of the WNBA?
I'm actually. This has brought up a good point. I'm actually thinking.
When is that going to happen?
My career as a professional boxer is almost to an end,
Become
right?
a woman.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Is like, what if I started my transition and I'm a welterweight, so I'm a little bit bigger than the Katie Taylor and those guys. What if I came back and I had an emerging career? You can't say no to me because I'm politically correct. I'm protected because now they have to fight me, right? Why wouldn't they?
And what are the rules?
There's no rules. There's no
But
rules
what are
yet.
the rules? I mean, could you just show up and say, "Hey, I think I'm a woman"?
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think in some of the college sports, you do have to have some kind of aspect where you have been on blockers for a certain amount of time. I think there is. I think, and I'm trying to have both. I'm trying to be devil's advocate here. I think that there is because I've been educating myself a little bit on this, which
So they don't have to chop their wieners off yet.
I don't think they do technically, but I think they have to not be. They have to be
There's
on
more
testosterone blockers.
There's more that goes into it than I understand that.
So I think there's some rules.
We don't advocate
about
chopping a wiener
that, but I think that this is so new that there's not a lot of
They
laws.
have to grow their hair long, like I'm doing.
Can they have beards?
Why not?
Are they allowed to?
Why not?
Well, I think if you have testosterone blockers, you don't grow as much
But
facial
if I was
hair.
you, here's what I would do. If I'm weekend Trav,
Okay.
and I want to keep my career going and transition,
I have a family to support now. Like maybe I come
Listen,
back and be a superstar.
Listen, do the blockers, whatever, but don't shave your beard. Just let it be what it is.
Leave it. Well, it won't fall out, right? Like if I put
I don't think
blockers
so.
on, it won't
I don't
fall
think
out.
so. I don't think so.
I'm waiting for that.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that.
So that's what I want to see.
I'm waiting for somebody.
But you have to go in the ring, wear a sports bra. Okay, that gives you excess marketing room. You could put whatever you want on there. Weighing in with Travis Hartman, you could put that on there.
And that's for sure going there.
There you go. I think we're on to something. And you know what? Maybe I'll try out for the WNBA. Or
First of all, you were probably one of the best layuppers of all time.
I am. Well, I'm not. I don't. So I don't.
You could do a layup.
I'll miss more layups than the WNBA All Stars.
Son of a biscuit.
I will admit that.
Just tried giving you
I
credit.
will admit
At
that.
least you're honest.
I'm a
though.
left-handed
At least you're
shooter.
honest.
I'm a left-handed shooter, but I'm a right-handed guy, so my brain sometimes disconnects. The WNBA All-Stars will be better at layups than me. They'll definitely be better at free throws. I was never a good free throw shooter. But on defense,
You're a good layupper.
they can't body up like me.
Body up. You're gonna body.
Oh yeah, man. You just got to tuck it back. You just got to tuck it back in the underwear, right? There was a movie at one point. No one wants to remember this movie. Joanna Man.
I remember that movie.
Joanna Man.
I remember that.
That was the first transgender. Well, he wasn't really transgender.
We're getting
That was the
shadow. Oops.
That was the first movie diving into this kind of topic. And what happened? He crushed it.
He did. He killed it.
Crushed it.
He killed. There's also been other movies too where it was. I think Amanda Bynes was in it.
Yeah,
and she was a soccer player.
Ladybugs.
There you go. So like,
no, that was a dude. That was a dude playing on the women's team. And what happened? He crushed it.
Killed it. Like he killed it. I was trying to do a video for
Amanda Bynes. Yes, I forget
Hartman.
the name of that one, but she pretended to be a guy to play on the soccer team. I don't think she crushed it, but she.
Oh yeah, that's right. She pretended to be a guy. That's right.
Either
Because she
way.
was trying to get close.
Folks,
Okay, that's right.
Folks, can we just all agree to this? Like, dudes do dude sports, women do women's sports. If you're going to be a weirdo and be a transgender, create a transgender division and do your thing against each other. Because the same amount of people are going to watch you guys that are going to watch you and be interested on the women's level. Because you don't see the other way around. You don't see a woman transitioning to be a man and competing in man sports, do you?
No,
No.
doesn't happen.
Interesting.
Because if it does,
Interesting.
you don't hear about it because they're not being successful. For
And this has
science reasons.
This has nothing to do with you actually wanting to transition to be a transgender or be a weirdo. This has nothing to do with that. Okay? Go for it. To each your own. As long as it's not me doing it, I don't. Well, and my family and those around me, don't talk to me. So, I'm sorry. It's weird.
Listen, you don't have to apologize.
This is
That is
satire.
how you feel, and that's
YouTube. This is satire. YouTube. This is satire.
This
Satire.
is Bumblebee tuna.
This is all satire.
Bumblebee tuna. But listen, you're not 100% off on this because my whole thing is like I'm not like against. Well, I kind of am, but I am. But here's my deal. How can you say no to when I say, okay, you want to do that? You want to choose to defy God because you were born a male. If you want to choose to defy what God made you be born with, then compete against other people that choose that too. Because it seems to be popular now. I don't think it is. I think we're only seeing I don't think it's very popular among the majority. It's a minority for sure. But what is wrong with competing against your own? That's it. Listen, you want to come at me with whatever, call me any name you want to, but what I'm trying to say is compete against your own because you clearly have an advantage. Why the hell does nobody see that a born man is now a woman and is number one in women's swimming?
Listen, well, I don't know if he's number one or not, but
he's winning a lot.
Weekend Trav, they do see it. They do.
They're just afraid to talk about it, probably, right?
They don't want to speak out against that because it goes against the political division that we have in this country.
Which is probably why I think we're going to have a Rumble account.
I think so. Listen.
Sorry, YouTube.
I just
we
don't
still love
know.
you a little bit. Like, come on, help us out.
It's like we're all taking crazy pills. All right? It's a Zoolander reference. We're taking crazy pills, folks. This whole argument with a guy, he's a guy. The guy from the University of Penn, it's stupid. It's stupid. Yet no one is actually in the normal media saying how stupid it is. It's stupid. Some women are coming forward and saying this is retarded. Sorry, that's a bad word, right? Well, anyways, where did we even get to this topic? We were talking about women's boxing. We were talking about my
Serrano.
disdain for the WNBA.
I was actually giving you credit for that.
Well,
because see, that's where I think your opinion matters more.
You will never get credit until it's marketed and promoted appropriately and filling stands up and you get a good talent pool coming in, then that's different. Then it becomes a full actual sport and I will eat crow and I will say, yes, I was wrong about the WNBA. But at that point, I'm going to be an 85-year-old man.
God bless you for
that's like over double my lifespan.
That's a full life.
Yeah. And so I probably will never see it
that's
in my day.
That's a Bob Arum life. That's a Bob Arum life.
Maybe my great grandchildren will one day say the WNBA is an excellent sport league.
Maybe if they start letting transgenders.
Oh, then I'm watching.
And they start jamming
it
out.
Dunking.
You're dunking on Candace Parker.
Listen,
she doesn't play anymore.
Listen,
but
I love when the lower level guys get some court time. So if they transgender and they're out there balling and they're dunking and they're all stars, I'm gonna watch WNBA then.
Fair.
There we go.
Listen, a man is allowed to have his own opinion. We should listen, because I listen to a lot of opinions.
I support the feminine side of folks. I'm drinking a Bud Light seltzer as well
Speaking
as our bourbon.
of all that, we haven't talked about our bourbon, and I chose this bourbon for a reason, by the way.
Okay.
Do you know why I chose this? Because the name of this bourbon is a brother's bond.
Okay.
And I don't think that brothers always have to be blood. And this is no disrespect to my brothers. I have 3 other brothers. Mm-hmm. I love my brothers. Mm-hmm. And people know I do. I love my brothers.
I know one of them.
But you actually do. You haven't met my other 2.
No.
But my other 3. You've met 1, but you haven't met the other 2. But I chose this because B Money is like a brother to me, and that's why I chose it. I wanted to have this on our episode.
That's sentimental.
It's called Brothers Bond. We can transition to something actually.
Transition's the word. That's the word of tonight.
I didn't even mean to do that. That was actually on accident.
We've transitioned from being Shadow Band to talking about bourbon. Brothers Bond.
But we're talking about bourbon because we are the #1 boxing, beard, and bourbon podcast in Orlando, Florida, in a boxing gym, specifically on a Sunday, sometimes on a Monday, sometimes on a Tuesday. Sometimes we don't even know. Sometimes we just drink because we drink, and sometimes I smoke a cigar. Sometimes I have a cigar on the episode, sometimes I don't. But sometimes we put ice in our bourbon. Sometimes we don't because we do it neat. But you know what? Regardless, we drink bourbon.
We do. And I do like this one. It has a good kind of a vanilla taste.
It's not bad, right?
I don't know if you're getting that. But I am. So let me read it a little bit because we set up, folks. We do pre-production, but we're setting up.
Oh, yeah, no, I get vanilla.
Yeah. So it's very good.
I get a little smoky vanilla, though.
Where did you get that from? Where did you get this?
That was ABC.
Oh, really?
That was a proud ABC buy.
There you go. So from Arkansas, folks. Fort Smith, Arkansas. You don't see a lot of that, but it's distilled in Indiana. So it's kind of weird. Okay, wait, hold on.
But I also would like to give credit out to the cigar that I have been chewing on. It is a Hoot and Young cigar, and it's called Medusa. And Hoot and Young also has a bourbon, and we will be doing that very soon as well. But
shout out Tim Young.
Tim Young,
shout
whatever.
Out Tim Young.
And Hoot and Young we've actually had their bourbon on one of our shows before, but we'll do it more as well. But we're trying. We sample all bourbons. We don't just do one bourbon every single show. And if anybody ever wants us to do one bourbon every show, why don't you just reach out to us? Because we might honor that if you pay us enough money.
Or, hell, bring it with you.
Or just give us some bourbon.
Or bring it with you and sit here and we'll all talk. I'm happy doing that. Let's put a third mic up on the table.
We've had that before. We've had a guest before. So, you know what? Maybe Tim Young of Hoot and Young, maybe you could come on our show.
Why not? Shout out Tim Young. So we can travel. Let's go ahead and rank this thing. I know we're running a little longer than normal, but you know what? I don't care.
Who cares?
Brothers Bond, and this is from Arkansas by way of Indiana, I guess. That's kind of a weird thing. It tastes very good to me, but let me get your ranking. From 0 to 10 boxing gloves. What are you thinking?
I'm going to go 6.5. I'm going to go a 6.5.
Okay, and I was going to go 6.4 anyways.
I like it.
So that's a 6, 4, 5. And folks, that's a good ranking. Listen, you can't give a 10 to everything. You can't even give an 8 to 10 to everything because
we've never had an 8.
That's
so
like
know that going in. We've never had an 8. So
this is above average. Average would be 5. So above average, it's very good. I think the worst thing we ever had was probably something from Sam's Club or something.
No.
Or Costco.
No, the worst we've ever had.
I know what you're going to say. But the worst one we had was like Costco brand. Second worst.
No, we never had it on the show, though.
I think we did.
No, we didn't. I know what you're talking about.
We've done 71 episodes.
It was Kirkland's.
It's
I know what you're talking about. We've never had that on the show because
I think we did.
Well, nope, I would never let that happen.
I'm pretty sure we did. I'm going to pull it up.
You pull it up.
If you guys can find it, put it on the comments.
Listen, I would never subject B Money to that.
I'm pretty sure
I poured that out.
Gave it to us. Pretty sure.
He did.
He doesn't listen.
So I poured that down the sink.
But the worst high-profile thing we've ever had.
Okay, that's better.
Was what?
Proper 12.
Yeah,
I was not a big fan.
Not a bourbon. It's a whiskey, but it's gross.
You want to know something? I forget this person's name, but it happened in the last couple of weeks. I forget the name of this person. It might have been a girl even. And she was a big fan of Proper 12. And I was like, listen, everybody's taste buds are different. I get it. But Proper 12, by far,
nasty.
Was one of the worst bourbons we've had on the show.
It wasn't a bourbon.
Bourbon's just whiskey.
It's a whiskey.
It was a whiskey.
It's really Scotch. So listen.
It was one of the worst we've had.
I've had plenty of scotches along my day. We don't do scotch here, really.
We've done a couple, though.
Yeah.
You know what though?
It's gross.
To be fair,
folks.
on the proper 12, we ended up drinking a lot of it on the show.
Maybe, yeah, that's so good. Kudos to them. But listen, if you're in a bar and all you're doing is drinking proper 12, you could basically take the little bar mat where you put your cups on when they're done and pour it into a glass, and it's going to taste better. That's my opinion. But, kudos to Conor McGregor, whatever.
They made a lot of money off of it.
So, Brothers Bond, there you go. We're giving it a 6.45 in total. Boxing gloves for the show. It's very good. It has a nice vanilla taste to it. It's easy drinking, especially after I've been drinking a seltzer.
Straight bourbon whiskey, hand-selected
so
batch.
we can try. We have a couple other things real quick I want to get through, and then we're going to close up the show. We've talked a lot.
Wrap it up.
We've probably already got our account closed by YouTube because of the whole transitioning conversation we had. But it just frustrates the hell out of me. It's not fair. As also a father of a girl, a dad girl, I'm just pissed. Like, what does it look like down the road? Not maybe for her, but maybe for her daughter. Who knows? We're all taking crazy pills. Anyways, let's go ahead.
Really fast before you wrap it up, I have to give credit to. So this is from a friend of mine that gave this to me. Madison Keys gave it to me. And Madison Keys actually just made the semifinals of the Australian Open.
Yes, she did.
We gave her a little welcoming home party yesterday because she just got back on Saturday from the Australian Open. So I got to give major kudos to Madison, who's back on the major scene. Maddie, thank you for the hat. Also, congratulations. Like, semifinals is amazing. She lost to the girl who won it all.
Yeah.
Ash Barty won it all.
Yeah.
So congrats, Maddie. We love you. And thanks for the hat, because I do wear it. I wore it today, actually. Went to lunch with my wife, and I wore it. But thank you, and congrats again.
Week in Trav's lunch prolonged for a few hours, so I'm glad we're able to film this. So let's do a couple quick things here, because I don't want to let another week roll by where we haven't filmed since 2 weeks ago, where we miss out on the new things we've been trying to implement over the past few months. Oh, yeah. I guess it's not new anymore. But we're going to start, number one, with the Beardsman of the week. I got to get the right sound effect. So on the edit, Weekend Trav, I'll just be transparent with everybody. On the edit, I couldn't find the typical thing we did on the last one we did.
Oh, it didn't happen.
So I need to figure it out. Anyways, this week's.
Whatever you do, producer, is amazing, so it's good.
Well,
whatever you transition to, I appreciate.
Listen, the transition from film to film to film to audio and putting it all together, it's a magic of transition. So this week's Beardsman of the Week actually is from the football realm, the NFL realm.
The playoffs are going right now. That's fair.
It's the championship rounds right now. Congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals, who took down the Chiefs earlier today. Right now, I'm watching
my home state.
The 49ers beating right now the Rams 10-7 in the third quarter. We'll see how that game finishes out. But I'm not going to talk about that game. I'm going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Chiefs, beating them, going to the Super Bowl for the third time. Beardsman of the Week.
In the history of their franchise.
There you go. Beardsman of the Week goes to Von Bell. And the reason why we chose Von Bell, Weekend Trav, actually you chose him, was because he had a huge interception in overtime. Okay?
Intercepted Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, from the second half through overtime, just not a good game for him.
Patrick Mahomes, I believe, up to that point, had thrown 26 touchdowns and only one interception, and now he's got so 3 now. So 26 no, I think he had 29 to 3 now. But anyway, he doesn't throw interceptions in the playoffs, and he threw one in the overtime.
And to be fair, it's not like he threw it straight to Von Bell. The ball was punched. Well, he was throwing it to Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
The ball was kind of popped out of the hands, and the other dude was just there. Von Bell was just there, and he collected it. So,
and to be fair, it was far down the field. It was third down. If that would have been incomplete, the Chiefs would have punted probably to that exact same spot.
Yeah.
To be fair, they would have probably.
But that was a big.
It was momentum, though.
The momentum had gone back and forth in the whole second half. So good job, Von Bell. He has a beer. We put it up on the screen here. But the main reason why he's on here for Beardsman of the Week is because he made a huge play.
It was in the playoffs, and that's a big deal.
But let's go to another huge play, and that's going to be this week's money shot of the week.
You don't even need the sounds. We made it.
And we don't have to go very far. It's going to be the same game, and the money shot of the week is actually going to go to Evan McPherson, the kicker for the Cincinnati Bengals.
They nicknamed him Shooter. I heard that.
Shooter, really? Shooter
Yeah.
McPherson? Shooter
Yeah, yeah, they called
like
him
Shooter
that.
McGavin?
Yeah, like that. I don't know if it's like Shooter McGavin, but like that's what I came to.
Either way. So he has been freaking lights out on the kicking game for the past few games.
Yeah.
Now, my only experience of Evan McPherson, number one, is that he's a Florida Gator. I don't like that. I'm a Seminole.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
By fan base only.
Good call.
I
didn't know that.
So, but also when the Packers played the Bengals, rest in peace, Packers. When the Packers played the Bengals, we'll talk about that in a second. He did not have a good game. Neither did our kicker. They went tit for tat for misses. And eventually, we won the game in overtime.
That guy doesn't miss often either.
He's been, ever since that game, like lights out.
Yeah.
This kid, because he's probably, they mentioned it on air, he's like, he's probably just too young to really think about it too much. He just does it.
He doesn't have any scars, they said.
No scars.
Because he's literally been like 10 for 10 the last month.
So the money shot isn't necessarily the actual game-winning field goal. It's actually the field goal that put them in the lead in the regular part of the game.
The regulation,
in the regulation. And
it was like a 50-some yarder, I think.
I don't remember the distance, but it was trailing to the
52,
left.
I thought.
It was trailing to the left. I'm like, oh no. Just got to stay in the uprights or else you're giving the ball back to Mahomes.
And when you're in Kansas City, it's outdoor stadium.
Yeah,
It's cold in
wind is
KC. I'm
crazy.
from Missouri. I literally grew up 50 miles from Arrowhead Stadium. Actually, less than 50 miles. Less than an hour drive to Arrowhead Stadium. It's not an easy place to kick in. It's not an easy place to play in because the fans are amazing.
Loud. It was loud. It was
I'm not a Chiefs fan,
loud.
but we have amazing fans.
But this guy had ice on his veins, water in his veins, and he kicked that game in the regulation to take the lead. That's the money shot of the week. It was trailing to the left, stayed in the uprights. They took the lead, eventually won the game. They're in the Super Bowl for the third time.
In the history of the franchise.
History of the franchise, taking on either the Rams or the 49ers, depending on how this game plays out so far.
Probably going to be the Niners who beat the Cowboys and the Packers.
But interesting, from what I read on ESPN, the last two times the Bengals were in the Super Bowl, they took on the 49ers, losing both times. So is this the trilogy of history for them, and they actually win the whole thing, coming out of nowhere to win the Super Bowl?
And another stat, too, is that I believe that the number one draft pick has made it to the Super Bowl twice, and it's Joe Namath, Joe Montana, and guess what?
And now
Joe Burrow. Like, I believe that's correct. If we're wrong, you know what? Nobody's going to watch it. They don't even care, but like, we're probably right.
Listen, he's a fun quarterback to watch. My main watching experience, obviously, was when they played the Packers. He plays gutsy, man. He can sling the rock. He takes the hits. He takes some risks. It's fun to watch. It's almost like he's like Favre and Rodgers put together. He's a fun guy to watch.
But that's what they say about Mahomes as well, and he beat Mahomes today.
Here's the interesting thing
He's a
with
gunslinger,
Mahomes.
a little Sand Armor.
My interesting thought about Mahomes, and it's too early to tell, and this is just me being salty a little bit as well. He won a Super Bowl, first time there, lost it last year.
Again.
Does he now have the Rodgers and Packers curse?
But wait, though. I've been watching the man in the arena on TB12, which is Tom Brady. Tom Brady has had a similar trajectory as well.
That's true.
He went like 4 or 5 years without winning one either, and then came back and like won a whole bunch.
That's true.
So like,
it could be.
We don't know yet. It's
It could
early.
be.
You're right, though. It's early,
in
but could be.
In today's day and age, though, it's hard to keep teams together. It's hard to keep.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that, especially when you got to pay these guys. So like for
Not just Mahomes. I think Mahomes is locked in with Chiefs, but to pay his cast, that's what's tough.
So that's what we're running into a problem with. The Packers right now are about to just implode, and they're going to be in rebuild, and it's going to be in the doldrums. I'm going to be very, very sad and pathetic on the show.
What if Rodgers goes to like the Broncos, or what if he retires?
I think it's more likely he goes to the Broncos than retires. If he wants to finish out his career here in Green Bay, he probably has one more year.
But that's the thing too. I think he might finish out in Green Bay, and this is my opinion, because who do they have in the wings, quarterback wise?
Jordan Love sucks.
So
that would be
that's
our
why
guy.
that's why I think that he might stay there. And the Green Bay Packers, even though they can't probably afford to keep his supporting cast, which to be fair, he doesn't have a supporting cast.
Here's what they can do. Not that I'm no expert in the NFL salary cap, but they can franchise tag Davante Adams. Not that any player likes that. And they can keep Rodgers, so it keeps him there. Davante Adams right now, it's already leaked out.
Do you think he's their key though? I think wide receivers are replaceable. But I think like
They are
offensive
replaceable.
linemen, things like that are a little tougher to keep.
Devontae Adams is an exceptional wide receiver. I think he will struggle more with a different quarterback that's not elite like a Rodgers.
Rodgers is a stud.
But so is Adams. Adams will still be an elite receiver. You see somebody like Odell Beckham Jr., it doesn't matter who's throwing the rock to him.
He's killing it.
He's great.
He's killing it.
We'll see what Jamari Chase with the Bengals, how that works out with him and Joe Burrow. It helps that they had the connection in college. So, I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of question marks. That's what makes the NFL a great sport to follow and monitor, even beyond the season.
The transitions are amazing.
The transition is great. And here's the transition we can trap to the end of the episode. This is episode 71. We thank you for following along with us. If you've hung up on us proverbially based on our transition conversation, then fine, whatever. We don't care, but we do because we're sensitive.
Yeah, but my shirt's awesome.
But hey, follow along. Subscribe below, depending on when you're following this video or audio podcast. We appreciate that. Or comment below. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios? That feels like an eternity ago that we talked about it. It was about an hour ago.
What about Kaylee Taylor and Mendes Serrano? What about Tyson Fury and whoever else? What about Canelo, whoever else? What about boxing in general? What about Jake Paul? Sorry.
What about Bob Arum? What about Ryan Garcia? What
about Terrence Crawford?
What about our Beardsman choices?
Yeah.
Von Bell. And what about our money shot choice?
Boom.
Evan McPherson. So comment below, subscribe below, give us a like. Dislikes don't matter anymore because YouTube is all PC, so whatever. But Week in Trav, I'm going to transition to the close.
Transition, okay. Yes, sir.
No final thoughts because I don't care.
I don't care either.
That there is Week in Trav.
That there's B Money, a.k.a. producer, a.k.a. Aaron Rodgers is actually kind of cool now.
I know, but I'm going to miss him. God bless. Thanks for watching.